Hello, this is 429, and today we're going to go over the top 12 FPS games that I recommend. These games are all single player, and unfortunately I don't own all the games on PC, but rather on PS4, so I did borrow some of the gameplay footage from other YouTubers, and you can see who I borrowed the gameplay from by checking the left lower hand corner of the screen where I will display their name. And these games are in no particular order, so just keep that in mind. But without further ado, let's get started. And at number 12, we have Fallout 4. We're going to talk about Fallout 4 because it's available for Xbox One, PS4, and PC, and because, well, Fallout 76 received terrible reviews for reasons we won't get into. Although I do recommend the previous Fallout games as well. Fallout 4 is a massive open-world FPS RPG released in 2015 by Bethesda Studios. And while older fans of the series appreciated it less than more recent fans, it's still a phenomenal game. This is the game that finally convinced me to buy a PC. You play as the sole survivor. This is a post-apocalypse like no other, with a mixture of 50s retro America and futuristic sci-fi technology. You start the game pre-war, just before the bombs drop, enter the vault, and are set into a cryogenic sleep for over 200 years. During this time, your newborn son was kidnapped, and it's your destiny to find him. Along the way, there are tons of side missions and locations for you to discover and explore. There are raiders for you to kill, mutated enemies like ghouls, mole rats, and deathclaws, and even some friendly factions for you to join. You can claim settlements and build on them using resources you find, and have settlers move in to keep them up. Like most RPGs, you get a pretty decent skill tree and can build your character however you like. The graphics are decent and the story is okay, but it's the lore and the gameplay that kept me playing, as well as the mod support. There's a massive modding community with thousands of mods for this game, which can make it even more replayable than it already is. Like I said, this game is available for PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Are you Virgil?
You know damn well I am. What are you doing here? Back!
And at number 11, we have BulletStorm, a first-person shooter originally released in 2011. But don't let that deter you. The game was remastered and re-released for current-gen consoles and is actually a lot of fun. It takes place in the 26th century and has you playing as a guy named Grayson, who basically, in a drunken rage, puts his crew in a real lousy position. After almost killing one of his friends, yet saving him by turning him into a cyborg, he and said cyborg decide to work together to get off the planet. Along the way, you find various weapons and learn some real fun combat moves and powers. This game is basically all about the outrageous combat. Eventually you get this leash which you can use to throw your enemies around as well as pull them towards you, and it's also used to access some other features. I mean, the moves and abilities you get are so addicting. For the time it was released, it really is unique and it's still a lot of fun today. The story is okay, but the jokes and humor in the game is just terrible, but it's easy enough to get past just by enjoying the gameplay. I would try to get this game on sale though, maybe $30 or less, but it is available for PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Hope it was worth the wait.
At number 10, we have Call of Juarez Gunslinger, which is surprisingly a lot better than I expected it to be. It's a first-person western action game originally released in 2013. You play as Silas Greaves, an old bounty hunter. The cool part about this game is it takes a unique approach to storytelling. Basically, Silas Greaves is sitting in a bar telling a story and you're playing out the story part.
I had a few ideas on how to get into that mine, but once I made my decision, I knew there was no turning back. So my first thought was to enter the nearest mine portal. I saw an entrance. Made sense.
about how you've taken down some of the biggest names in history, like Billy the Kid, Butch Cassidy, and more. There's some hilarious moments too where you play out the story and someone will call you out and the story rewinds and you play through again but with a different outcome. It's really cool. This is no Red Dead Redemption though. The levels are linear, but it's still a whole lot of fun. Playing feels like you're playing out a comic book. You do get different weapons and skill trees as well, and I thought this game was actually kind of difficult, but it might have just been me. This is another game where if you haven't played it yet, you can likely find it pretty cheap and it's totally worth it. Unfortunately, this is the one game on the list that you can't get on PS4 and Xbox One, but it is available for PC, PS3, and Xbox 360.
Wasn't he the sheriff who augmented his income by shaking down miners and robbing gold shipments?
That's the one.
Oh yeah, I remember him. He ran that gang of thieving outlaws called the Innocents.
So it's true that you went toe-to-toe with him?
Indeed I did, son. Indeed I did.
At number 9, we have Prey. Prey is an absolute gem. By far one of the most underrated games ever, much like everything Arcane Studios touches. Prey is a sci-fi, immersive sim, survival, horror, stealth, FPS RPG, developed by Arcane Studios and released in 2017. You take on the role of a female or male, depending on your choice, named Morgan Yu, and are basically given the task to survive on a massive space station overrun by extremely hostile alien forces called Typhon. There are many different types of Typhon roaming the station with different powers. The first one you're introduced to is the Mimic, which transforms itself to look like random objects like coffee mugs and chairs and boxes and so on, which is a lot freakier than it sounds because you never know where there's a Mimic. You might be trying to sneak up on an enemy and not realize you're about to walk right past a Mimic disguised as a lamp, and next thing you know your whole plan is ruined. The game does have some terrifying moments. There's not a moment that really goes by where your heart isn't racing. You can hear the clomping footsteps of Typhon pacing back and forth, and what's even creepier is that they can talk. I won't say why, but it's certainly creepy to hear them muttering about the things in the glass and how it's looking at them. Like I said before, the game is also an RPG. You do gain access to a skill tree, which you can level up with something called neuromods. You can level up your basic human abilities, or you can level up Typhon abilities, which does come with consequences, but is pretty cool. Again, I won't go into details. Anyway, I highly recommend this game. If you haven't yet, check it out. This game is available for PC, PS4, and Xbox One.
I need you to figure out what that little shit was working on. She sent regular reports, but I think she was holding out on me.
Of course I was holding out on you, you evil bitch.
What's so funny?
Nothing. Private joke.
At number 8 is Shadow Warrior 2, a game that flew under the radar big time. Shadow Warrior 2 is a first-person action-adventure shoot-and-loot hack-and-slash game originally released in 2016. You are Lo Wang, a mercenary for the Yakuza who eventually ends up saving a woman and has to share his body with her. I know that sounds weird, and it is, but the story isn't why you should play the game. The story is mediocre, and god is the humor just plain 5th grade level. But the gameplay itself is what makes the game shine. You gain access to so many different weapons, and kinda like Borderlands, they're all different levels with unique characteristics and come in different levels of rarity. But the weapons are not limited to just guns. You also get many different kinds of swords. The sword play is a lot of fun too. You can slice enemy limbs off in the direction and angle at which you slice, and you can also blow holes right through enemy torsos. This game is gory and just a lot of fun, and the weapon play is so fluid and fast paced, it's just adrenaline inducing. And it's so gorgeous. The weapons and environments look so damn good, especially considering the small indie team behind the development. The levels are procedurally generated, but it's done well. If you haven't yet, check out this game. It's good fun and it also has co-op. It's available for PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Watch out!
And at number 7 is Wolfenstein: The New Colossus. Ah, Wolfenstein. An extremely satisfying, outstandingly beautiful, gory, action-packed FPS where you get to brutalize Nazis in so many ways. Honestly, I recommend the entire series. Start with The New Order or The Old Blood and then play The New Colossus. This is a game series I wanted to try for so long but never did until The New Colossus. And now it's one of my favorite games out there. There's no game that can compare to this. It's fast-paced and very violent. You play as BJ Blazkowicz and continue the story of the previous game. After the Nazis have taken over America, it's your job to establish a resistance and bring an end to the Nazis. I've got to say, the transition of a Nazi America is very interesting. Technology is beyond advanced and the Nazis are more powerful than ever. And it's a beautiful game. The graphics are beyond impressive and possibly one of the best looking games out there. You get the option to go stealthy or go in guns blazing, and both ways work very well. I always take the stealthy approach, but there are still moments where you just go in guns blazing. And honestly, it's hard not to. It's just so much fun filling the enemies with bullets, spraying their blood all over the walls, cleaving their legs off, and sticking your axe in their skull. You get skills in this game, but you level them up by performing various actions, which gives you a goal and a reason to keep playing even after the main campaign ends. The story is great. I know some people didn't care for it, but I really did. It's intense, funny, sad, gripping, suspenseful, and just plain entertaining. I loved every minute of this game, and I'm anxious for the upcoming Youngblood co-op game. Check it out. This game, as well as the previous 2 released under Machine Games, is available for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. At number 6 is Bioshock. I'm just going to recommend the whole series, because if you buy this game for the current gen console, you're going to be buying the entire collection anyway. But for the sake of time, I'm going to be talking about Infinite, a favorite to many, but the least favorite to others. Bioshock Infinite is an FPS game originally released in 2013, and it still plays well today. With a lack of steampunk games in the gaming world, Bioshock Infinite quenches the thirst like no other. You play as Booker DeWitt, a former Pinkerton agent who takes an unexpected trip to Columbia, the city in the sky. There he must find a girl named Elizabeth, a woman with unique powers, and they find themselves fighting their way through the various factions throughout the city. It's still a beautiful game to this day, and its gameplay has aged like fine wine. Irrational Games did such a great job at creating an alternate history for this game. Basically, it takes place in an alternate 1910s America, where Columbia seceded from the US and became its own city in the sky. The founding fathers are seen almost as religious icons, and the city is overrun with racism and elitism, which makes it all the more fun to go around shooting and killing your way through. You get various weapons throughout the game, as well as powers known as vigors, or vigors, however you say it. The story, much like the other Bioshock games, is phenomenal. There are many suspenseful and emotional moments, as well as some crazy twists. You absolutely need to play this if you haven't. In fact, play all the Bioshock games. You can get the collection for Xbox One, PS4, and PC.
Can't find anything.
Flint and I had a gentleman's agreement in the past. I give him the loot from the bodies Jack ditches in the glacier. He promises not to torture me for hours at a time. Then he does it anyway. But that ends today.
And at number 5 is Borderlands 2. What would an FPS list be without Borderlands 2? Yet another post-apocalyptic gem. Borderlands is a hilarious, open-world first-person RPG shooter originally released in 2012. You play as one of 4, or 6 if you have the DLC, vault hunters, each with their own unique skills and playstyle on a planet called Pandora. It takes place 5 years after the first game, but you can play Borderlands 2 without playing the first one. Basically, you're betrayed by the main villain, Handsome Jack, and left for dead. mission. You end up being guided by a woman named Angel who aids in building a resistance to defeat Handsome Jack once and for all. The game is cel-shaded, but don't let that throw you off if you prefer realistic graphics. I never imagined I would like the art, but I really did, and Borderlands is now one of my favorite games of all time. The world is large and gives you a lot to explore. There are many different enemies with their own strengths and weaknesses and are all different levels. The beauty of Borderlands is the grind. It's not a bad grind, but a good grind. Borderlands is essentially a shoot and loot where you take on waves of enemies and level up your characters so that you can take on stronger enemies who drop better loot. You're always picking up weapons, upgrading them, selling them, and taking down bigger enemies for the better loot. There are so many different guns with different traits and qualities that you can have up to 20 different guns in your inventory with the proper skills and upgrades, and none of them be the same. And once you beat the game, you can keep on with your character at the same level and beat even tougher enemies with better loot. The game is practically infinitely replayable, and the story is so much fun and it's pretty hilarious. Handsome Jack may be one of the best villains of all time. If you haven't played Borderlands 2 yet, I seriously recommend it. You can pick it up for fairly cheap and it regularly goes on sale. I recommend the Handsome Collection, which also includes the pre-sequel and all DLC. It's available for PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
I should probably clarify. The diamond horse I've been telling you about, it's not a sculpture or anything. It's a living horse that actually happens to be made of... I'll go get it. What's that? What's that? Say hello. Yeah. Let Stallion says hello.
Delilah has the throne, and my father is missing.
At number 4, we have Dishonored 2. I cannot recommend this game enough, and I will recommend it every chance I get because it is so severely underrated. Dishonored 2, released in 2016, is a stealth, action-adventure, immersive sim developed by Arcane Studios and continues the story of the first game. Like I said earlier, everything Arcane Studios touches is gold. It takes place in the fictional city of Karnaca, a city that represents 19th century southern European countries like Spain, Italy, and Greece. It's very steampunk, but is often referred to as whalepunk due to the process and manufacturing of whale bone, and whale oil as a source of currency and energy. You play as either Emily Caldwin or Corvo Atano, depending on your choice, and must retake the throne after being overthrown by a woman named Delilah Copperspoon, the supposed older half-sister of Jessamine Caldwin and the true heir to the throne. You take on various missions as well as side missions throughout several large open maps, and you are simply an assassin. There are many different paths and choices with several different outcomes and consequences. You can take the stealthy, non-violent approach and go through the entire game without ever being seen. You can be stealthy and violent, or just go through slicing and dicing through all your enemies. Depending on the actions you take against your enemies and the manner in which you do so, you may get one of several endings. The best part is you can play through again with the other character and get a whole new set of powers and options. Speaking of powers, you find and collect runes and bone charms that give you different powers and abilities. There are many different powers to choose from that will help you play the way you want. The game is highly replayable and fun. The graphics are damn beautiful and unique and a huge step up from the first game. The story itself is also entertaining, and there are plenty of books and articles if you enjoy exploring the lore of games. Again, I cannot recommend this series enough. Do yourself a favor, buy all 3 games. Each one is great in their own way, though the first game doesn't compare in terms of graphics and features, but it's still worth it. You can get them all on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. At number 3 is Dying Light. Dying Light is one of the best zombie games you'll ever play. It's an open-world, first-person action-adventure RPG set in the fictional world of Haran. You play as an undercover GRE operative named Kyle Crane, sent to recover a stolen file. The game starts with you parachuting from a plane down into the infected city. Of course, things go wrong and you end up getting bitten. Oh yeah, you get infected. Unlike most games, there is a temporary fix that prevents you from turning. During your mission, you start to have mixed feelings about what's right and what's wrong, and end up making big decisions. Unlike other zombie games, parkour is a large part of the game, and it's a big part of survival. You must keep moving at all times, and often find yourself running from zombies, especially at night. That's when the real terror truly shows. While it's often anxiety-inducing to be out with the stronger enemies at night, sometimes you have no choice. But it's also a thrill. Sometimes you've got 4 or 5 infected on you, and you're hopping from rooftop to rooftop, unaware of what's in front of you, just hoping you'll make it back safely. You also get access to tons of different weapons, which with different qualities and traits. Weapons do wear down and break, but you are able to repair them a certain number of times. Weapons come in a variety of different colors representing the level of the weapon. You can also modify the weapons to have different elemental qualities such as toxicity, electricity, fire, bleeding, etc., as well as boost the main attributes such as strength, durability, and handling. The game and environment is beautiful even today and is a lot of fun to traverse through. Techland did a damn good job with the parkour and design in this game. I love drop-kicking zombies off roofs, jumping on their heads and onto another, tripping them, kicking them into spike traps, and more. There are also human enemies that can be kind of challenging, but also kind of dumb. Much like other RPGs, you get a few different skill trees: agility, power, and survival. And I absolutely love how the leveling up works in this game. Basically, you get points for your actions. So every time you parkour from one roof to another, or jump off a zombie, you get agility points. Attacking or killing an enemy will give you power points, and completing missions will give you survivor points. After so many points, you earn a skill for that tree. Honestly, I wish there were more games that use this approach, but the story is pretty decent and the game is a must-have. You can get it on PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
But I was wrong. I was blind. But now I see.
At number 2, we have Far Cry 5. If you haven't played any of the Far Cry games yet, you're uninvited to the party. While Far Cry 5 is a far cry from its predecessors, it's my favorite of all. Far Cry 5 is a first-person action-adventure shooter with light RPG elements. Starting to see a pattern here? You play as Rook, a junior deputy sheriff who gets stranded in Hope County, Montana after trying to arrest a doomsday cult leader by the name of Joseph Seed. The game starts off with you and a few other members of your department landing in the cult's HQ, and things are
eerie
as the cult eyes you down and follows you into the church. When you decide to arrest their father, shit goes south real fast. Ubisoft's direction of this game is fantastic. While there are some major plot holes, the story is dark and gripping and just a lot of fun. You get access to a lot of different guns and weapons with different customization options, which I think the previous titles lacked. Same with the companion system and skill trees. I loved the companion system in Far Cry 5. You get a variety of different companions that can help you throughout the game. No tokens required, and each companion has their own unique skills, which allows for some deadly combinations. Some companions carry large guns and blow everything to pieces and just cause complete mayhem, while other companions can sneak through outposts without being seen and allow for the player to take over outposts being completely undetected. And the wide variety of skills add to that and also allow something for the player to work towards. The graphics are by far one of the most stunning of any game I've ever played. They are on a new level and beyond anything I've seen in a video game up until Metro Exodus. Like I said in my Far Cry Primal video, the lighting is what really pulls it all together, and the map and environment is just gorgeous. The lush green hills and the dense woods and many different species of animals just makes it so easy to get lost in the game. Far Cry 5 is available for PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Are you seeing this? I'm not just imagining things, right? A train! A damn train on the surface! Where?
And of course at number 1 we have Metro Exodus. This game was just released and has received pretty great reviews for the most part, other than the whole epic PC thing. But anyway, it's a first-person action-adventure shooter with survival elements where you continue the story of Artyom, who just left the metro tunnels he's so familiar with and sets out into the open world to prove there are other survivors out there. You get a pretty decent selection of customizable and moddable weapons that you can now access on the go and customize on the go as well. Unlike previous games, you now get to explore some pretty decent sized open maps and environments, and they're so well detailed and beautiful, which really helps immerse you when you're playing it. The monsters in this game are particularly creepy and also adds a good deal of horror element to the game. The game definitely deserves the recognition it's finally getting after 3 games. The previous titles are also a lot of fun and I do recommend them as well. You can get Exodus as well as the Redux for PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And that's my list of 12 single player FPS games you need to play. If there's any that I missed, please feel free to let me know below. And if you like this video, I do plan on releasing more in the future, so please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you didn't like it, please let me know why below. I appreciate all constructive criticism. And until next time, peace out.